Hi there, welcome. I'm Christine Weber. Welcome to my weekly live stream. I have two cameras going, so you might see my eyes going back and forth between them. One of these days, I'll figure out how to do it all on one camera. Welcome. I love to support mature yoga teachers getting their wisdom out there into the world. So thank you for being here. Please leave a comment. I really appreciate it. And let's jump into the topic this week, which is why go slow. This is something I've been talking about for so long. If you feel like, oh, I've already heard her talk about that, maybe have a little nuance that might be helpful for you. So stick around and let me know what you think in the comments. Okay, so I love to go to gym classes. I have this one class I go to. It's like a middle-aged lady weightlifting class, and I'm really conscious about my bones. I'm going to be 59 in a couple of weeks. And that is one thing. I'm going into midlife. Actually, I'm leaving midlife and going into the rest of my life with the idea of having strong bones. And so I go to this class. It's like a middle-aged lady gym class, which I just love. I love the teacher. And I go on Tuesdays and Thursdays as much as I can. I don't always go, but as much as I can, I go. And we lift weights and we listen to loud music and we laugh a lot and it's super fun. And I love it. But what is the difference between doing this 10 times and building up this muscle? Fantastic. Great. It's great for you. Or doing, or another thing that we do in the yoga world a lot are tabletop stuff, right? So we do, I do Chakrabakasana, I teach Chakrabakasana, I teach Tiger Stretch, this one, teach Tiger Stretch a lot. So what's the difference between doing that at the gym, where sometimes our teacher will have us put a weight here and we lift and we're building this muscle? What is the difference between doing that in a gym class and moving slowly in a yoga class? It seems like the same thing. And I think yoga teachers are prone to conflate the two experiences. We think of them as the same thing. And we're like, oh, we breathe with yoga. That's what makes it different, which is somewhat true. But there's more to it than that. So there's no doubt that building muscle and building bone, especially as you get older, is super important. That's why I go to a class. I go to a class for that. When I do yoga, I'm doing something different. Now, there's certainly crossover. It's like if you had a Venn diagram, there would be crossovers for sure. Like when I do Tiger Stretch, I'm working on my glutes. There's no doubt. I'm working my hamstring, no doubt. But I'm doing something that's quite different. And it's not based on the number of repetitions that I do. It's not based on the weight that I'm lifting necessarily. What I'm doing is I'm sending different messages to my brain, and I'm using mindful awareness to notice what's going on in my body. So Dan Siegel talks about 4 important elements of neuroplasticity, of change. Dan Siegel is like a famous neuroscientist, right? Neuropsychiatrist, I think. So he talks about 4 different ways that we change the brain. And the most important way is awareness. We bring awareness to what we're doing. And that could be, a relationship and the way we talk to somebody, but it also has to do with our body. And, when I go to that gym class, God bless them, I see people doing all sorts of things with their body, like kind of throwing their body around without much attention to it, because that's the way we are trained in our culture to treat our bodies. Our body is it's like a master slave narrative, and it still goes on today. It's like you just do it to your body. You make your body the slave to what your mind wants it to do. Unfortunately, the body doesn't like that for the most part, because it has its own wisdom. And the way that it shows us it doesn't like it is with chronic, persistent pain. So people end up, I had a student once, I'll tell you this story. He, bless his heart, he was a Vietnam vet, had a lot of trauma, obviously, probably childhood trauma too. And he did not like my yoga class. And he said, I can't do it. It's too slow. And I was like, just keep trying, just keep trying. And he really did try, and maybe I couldn't get the message across well. This was like 20 years ago. I couldn't get the message across well. But what he wanted was push. He wanted to push himself in everything because that was the way he felt alive, and he could manage his body, He ended up getting 2 knee replacements. He had double knee replacements. He would go to the gym twice every day with these double knee replacements and just beat himself up. And that's what we're trained to do. It doesn't matter if you're in the military. We're still trained to do that in our culture. We're trained to beat ourselves up. And then we have this epidemic of chronic pain. And people are like, I wonder how we fix the chronic pain. Maybe we should just give it drugs. It's not about that. It's about learning. It's about unlearning that process of the body, the master slave narrative, and realizing, no, this is a co-dependent relationship. Not codependent, but what I mean, that we're dependent on each other. The body and the mind depend on each other. The body and the mind are one, which means we have to learn to be an ally with the body. We have to learn to befriend the body. So going back to that question, what's different when I go to the gym, and I still am like super into form and doing things. I really like to tune in when I'm working out, which is great, but it's so different than being able to go through these very slow movements that have no, I don't care how many times I do them. The repetitions don't matter. What matters is that I'm taking my time, I'm moving slowly, I'm developing greater awareness, and that's how we start to unravel and change the nervous system. We start to unravel the patterns of pain. We start to replace the patterns of pain with patterns of comfortable movement, and you cannot do it fast. That's what Norman George says in his book, The Brain's Way of Healing. You can't do this stuff fast. You have to slow it down to be able to unravel it. So when we're teaching slow stuff and people are going, oh, I need a faster class. I like to feel like these are the things I've heard over the years. I need to feel like I'm dancing. I need to feel the burn. This doesn't work for me. When I've heard that complaint over and over and over for almost 30 years that I've been teaching, right? And what I have to be able to tell students is, no, we're not doing that here. You go do that in the gym. Go do that in your vinyasa class or what, your gym yoga class. Not that all yoga classes at the gym are like that. That's not what I mean. But the fitness-oriented yoga class, go for it. What we're doing here is changing your nervous system. We're rewiring the nervous system to diminish those patterns, those samskaras of chronic or persistent pain, and to replace them with functional, comfortable, easeful movement. That's what we're doing here. We're changing the nervous system. And when I started talking like that to people, my whole career changed. People were like, oh, I'd never thought that was even possible. It was a complete reorientation. But I still, even after all these years, I still come on and I talk about this stuff because that doesn't mean that it's changed in the culture. The culture still hasn't changed. The culture still sees yoga. They see that what I do as some kind of inferior brand of yoga that's for old, sick people, instead of it being a different skill set. So that's what I've gotten much better at explaining. I hope that this is helpful for you in explaining it to your students if you teach like I do, you teach slow mindful stuff. Like what we have to be good at explaining is that this is for your nervous system. This is different. I worked at an intensive outpatient program for a couple of years in a drug and alcohol treatment center. And it was also a partial hospitalization program. And in that program, I had a cohort of young women. They hated yoga. They'd be like, oh, I can't believe we have to do yoga. And they hated it because the yoga that they'd been exposed to was yoga that made them feel bad about their bodies. It was too body conscious oriented, on the whole elitist thing with the outfits and the whole bit, But I started teaching them this stuff. I started being like, what we do here is therapeutic. We're changing the nervous system, and this is going to be helpful in your recovery. And I gave them longer explanations, but it was like that. And after I was there for several months, I started to hear talk in the hallway, and a new person would come into the program, and the women out and with the person, and they would say, "We're doing yoga next," and that inevitably the new person would say, "Oh, I hate yoga," and they would say, "No, this is different. This is yoga therapy. This is about your nervous system." I would hear the little things that they were saying that I had been teaching them, and it was so heartwarming because I realized that they were like, "Oh, you might actually like this, and this is different than what you think it's going to be." That perception is still out there in the culture, and I think it's really important for all of us who teach like this to stand up for what we do, to be able to explain it really well, and to help people understand that it's different, and this is about your nervous system. This is not the same thing as going to the gym. I hope this is helpful for you today. I would love to hear from you. Please leave me a comment and let me know if this kind of information is useful for you, and anything else you want me to talk about in my live stream. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you next week.